A Life in Poetry, Brook Emery and Ron Pretty in conversation. We're going to start off with Brook saying a few words and then Ron will be following.
It's about the use of the personal in poetry. And I'm trying to avoid the word confessional, but we are talking confessional there. And I'm asking this question in the context first of T.S. Eliot's famous remark about impersonality in poetry, and also in the context of how Ron sees, what I imagine are fashions in contemporary poetry at the moment. And also on a more personal level, I'm asking it because I know Ron's got a lot of very fine poems that revolve around the personal and around the family, and I'm sure he'll read some of those to us. But Ron, about impersonality and personal in poetry and current fashions, unless I'm making that up.
No, you're not making it up, certainly. T.S. Eliot talked about the objective correlative, wasn't it? That notion that there's emotion in a poem, there should be the events in the poem, the detail in the poem that will naturally evoke that emotion. And I think that's what I've tried to do in my poetry. I know, I don't think poetry should be a bloodless thing. And I know there's a fashion in contemporary poetry particularly to see poetry as about language primarily and as about experimentation in language. I've always felt that I wanted my poetry and the poetry that I admire to go beyond the language of the poem to issues that reflect the things that matter to people who are reading the poem. I've just trying to remember who it was. It was an American novelist who said, it's no wonder that the important people... Yeah, that's right. It's no wonder that the important people of the world take no notice of the poets and the novelists, because there's no evidence that any of them are dealing with anything that's worth talking about. It really affects people. Now, I think that is an overstatement, but I think there is that danger that we sometimes look at our poetry as a self-satisfying object and doesn't go beyond that. I think if you're going to, I write a lot of poetry. I've got 700 poems at home in my reject pile, poems that I'll never send out, because they're poems that are about me, or there are poems that just don't work. Most of them just don't work. And if you're writing for yourself, I think that's fine. I get a lot of pleasure out of sitting out on the back balcony at home with a glass of red and a candle often, if it's still, writing poetry. Next morning I look at what I've written. Some of it's good, most of it's rubbish. So I throw it away, I put it in the reject pile. But if you're going to send poetry out, I think it needs to speak to the people that might be reading it. I think it needs to find a way of touching people. And if you look at the poets that I admire most, I think that's what they succeed in doing. There's a lot of them. One of the really formative experiences in my life was when my wife and I went to Sri Lanka in 1982 and then again in 1983 to adopt two daughters. One of those daughters now has 5 children of her own. The other one is about to have her first child. Over the years since then, I've written continuously about that experience, about aspects of that experience. There was a boy, not yet a boy, a toddler, named Uffel, leapt into my arms from the bus stop where they'd left him. Cinnamon brown he was, with a round and glistening belly. The orphanage we visited day and day, watched him cling and laugh and talk a language we didn't understand but understood him perfectly. As we walked the shaded path between the huts, or watch the snake charmers ply their fangless trade. Uppal in my arms, or clinging to my legs like a hobble or a hobbit looking for his cave. There was a child, yet not a boy, and yet there was no magic here, but land torn by civil war, where small ones like Uppal, orphaned by the waves of conflict that swept across the paddies and through the cinnamon groves, were left by the roadside to grow up as best they could, if they could. Luckier than some, he'd been found and taken not home, but to a home, where every adult visiting must surely be a parent. Every time we visited, he remembered me, who had to be his father, and surely would have chosen had choice been possible. There was a boy, not yet a boy, named Uppal, toddled out to meet us when we came and came again to see him. Brown as cinnamon, the groves nearby rent by fury, his small face lit by recognition and ownership. He chose us in a land possessed by terror. We would have taken him but could not. And I remember Uppal, his small face lifted to mine, his arms raised up. But we did adopt 2 children from Sri Lanka, daughters, and after we'd brought the first one home, this experience affected my wife more than me, in fact. It's called Blue Movies. Child in the pram, your dark face laughing up, pale mother. The barking dogs that make your slow perambulation down the street. The autumn sun glistens on your skin, the toys you rattle. Staphylococci are healing round your throat. Slowly you're being fed and needled into health. Almost now you can hold your head upright. Your dark eyes flicker from toys to mother, from toes to trees, this new world opening out. For a moment at the corner, the tram pauses. Your face crumples as a truck rumbles past. Your mother's hand reaches towards you. Quickly your small brown fist is swallowed up as your smile replies to hers. Then your grip tightens as a stranger's face looms over the pram. Perhaps it's just as well you don't understand what follows. Such a pretty little girl. Is it yours? Your mother stiffens as she nods. The stranger looks again from parent to cinnamon child. Oh dear, she says. The father must be devilish black. The mother smiles as she eases past her. I've no idea, she says. The other daughter was learning to ride her bicycle without training wheels at the same time as I was reading a new collection by John Tranter. So this poem is called Reading Tranter Without Training Wheels. I'm under the influence not of Berlin, nor anything as earthy as Cooper's, but Tranter and his cocktails. Dry, more gin than vermouth. Their fumes have shouldered back to clouds, the morning sun shines groggily, and my daughter opts to do without her training wheels. She's got a lot to learn about balance and the glitterati. The hip, cool sophisticates, the whole world's America's and America's your oyster. Only a naif would expect compassion. The blade is cool and sharp, everything's corrupt, low-down sex and a motel shack, smack and spasms, cops in glass in dark glasses, FBI on the take, pounding on the door. For an hour or so we pedalled over grass and toes and concrete, always a glittering tangent to the road, with wheels so wobbly you'd think the mob had cornered that market too. As the sun gets vertical, perspiration drips from me as never from a cool Tranter poem. Again the 60s passed me by, the times I thought I had. The birds, the booze, the scorching up the strip was all uncool, suburban. At 12:30, I push her onto the grass and let her go. She veers towards the gutter, trying nervously to stay upright, together. When we were teenagers, we took them back to Sri Lanka because we'd found the birth mother of one of the girls and we wanted them to meet, and they did meet. And this poem is called Translation. She could not speak to her mother when they met. She had just turned 21, but had never seen the small dark woman until then, except in photos. Harris sat beside her, his smile inviting them to break the silence. He would translate, he said, if only they had something to say. Mother and daughter looked at one another, tears on their cheeks. "Tell her," she said to Harris, "tell her I didn't know where she'd gone, which country she went to. I used to watch the planes fly over," she said. "I'd wonder where they were going and if she was on them." Alana, for that was the daughter's name, reached out to her without a word. She took her hand. "Vasanti," the mother said, "that was your name." "And still it is," the daughter cried. "Tell her," she said through her tears, "tell her that's what it is." Star sapphires falling as tears. The second mother, her pale silence, watching Alana Vasanti there in that room. Sri Lankan sun streaming in where mother and daughter are holding hands, having no language except its loss. And finally, one of the good things about children, of course, is they grow up and have children of their own. And this is a poem I wrote for a daughter after her first child was born. It's called Nocturne. It's for Saroja and Luke. These tiny white moths, the beetles at the window, lights around the lake against the indigo sky, the black hills, always the barking dogs, who can stand it. Sleep, my love. Tomorrow the wind will be a memory, your mother's milk, her full breast, your comforter, and these late night squalls against the noises of the night, a sleep-drugged nightmare. That exhausted figure in pyjamas is just your father come in from the barking night to comfort you. He would be sleeping. No dog could wake him, but your whimper sat him up. Your cry got him out of bed. He holds you now against his chest, against the night and its noise, against the world.